My introduction to farming came through a love of permaculture. As a paramedic, I knew I needed something different, and I started learning about our food supply and conventional farming, and I was like, no, that's not going to work for me. So I took a course in permaculture and I was instantly hooked. My name is Karla and I own and operate Plot Twist Farms. I've been here for, this is my 7th year, and we're in the sunny Okanagan. When you work with nature like permaculture teaches us, it always will find its own balance. So that was always my philosophy, was just, if there was an imbalance in the system, just figure out how to observe and make small adjustments to get that balance so that nature kind of will do the work for you. It's a marriage of a bunch of different philosophies. So there's permaculture, there's biodynamics, and there's conventional agriculture. So where we use permaculture on the farm is by far, in a way, most important is pest management and soil health. So if you have slugs, you don't have a slug problem, you have a duck problem. You don't have enough ducks or birds, right? So that's how you look at problems differently. It's not figuring out what the problem is and then just eliminating it with an insecticide or something like that. If the goal is to try and have balance, what is allowing the slugs to proliferate that you're missing? So if we have aphids in the kale, then we need something that eats aphids. Ladybugs. What attracts ladybugs? Dill. So we grow a lot of dill. We do a ton of interplanting. So we have onions, dill, marigolds within all of our kale. We also rotate our crops a lot. So we have 3 beds of kale on the farm, all in different locations. So if the aphids find one, that gets pulled and we still have the other 2 to rely on. And then we plan on planting that one again. Interplanting is probably the biggest thing we do. We don't use any fungicides, insecticides, or pesticides at all. We use a lot of permaculture in the orchard. We have the fruit trees, and then we have in between them, instead of a sterile section, we have rhubarb, currants, comfrey, flowers to help pollinators and manage the pests as well. We do asparagus and raspberries and flowers and all kinds of things in the orchard just to really create a diverse ecosystem. That's totally the goal, is diversity, because that's where the strength is. If you think about a spider web, it's really strong because it has hundreds of different connections. So if one of those connections breaks, the spider web still stays intact. But if you have something linear and that breaks, your connection is gone. So that's the difference between conventional agriculture as a linear line and permaculture, which is more of like a spider web. You have lots of different connections to keep your system strong and resilient. We use biodynamics as well, so everything that gets planted on the farm is planted on the proper moon day. Biodynamics is a really ancient way of thinking about agriculture. It's understanding that the moon controls the way the earth breathes and exhales water and energy. And as a total experiment, I played with that a few years ago and I noticed an instant difference in the crops. We'll bag our lettuce, and in 2.5, 3 weeks, it's still perfect in the cooler. It's still amazing. Everything is cyclical, and you notice that in life and longer generations. You notice that on a farm year to year. So if one year you have a ton of mice, lots and lots of mice, then it will stimulate snakes. It'll stimulate the counterpart to that. If you have a lot of marmots like we have this year, which tends to be the new thing right now, you're going to have a lot of predatory birds next year. So it's a balance, it's a yin and yang all the time, and it's something new every year. Last year we had a heat dome. This year it's been cold and rainy. So you always have to be able to be adaptable. You always have to be able to think on your feet and change what your plan was. With a permaculture background, it's so important to observe patterns. So in permaculture we learn about the connections and the relationships that nature has, and to be very observant and to make very small adjustments. Creating a safe space for nature to flourish, I think, is what we do really to help the climate and help the environment. Our soil health is extremely important to us. So anytime we harvest a crop, it stays untouched and we just add more nutrients, we add more compost. So if you think of soil as an apartment building, it takes a long time to build residences that have homes and systems, and they work as a community. So you have worms and nematodes and bacteria and fungus and all those kinds of things. And they are cycling nutrients, they're talking to each other, they're working like underground pharmacies for the plants. They're introducing all the nitrogen and the calcium into the food you're going to eat, so it makes it healthier for people. But as soon as you till that soil, the process has got to start all over again. So we never till, we encourage that dynamic, and that shows in our produce. We have no weeds, virtually no weeds. We can weed this whole farm with 2 people in 20 minutes once every 2 or 3 weeks. So that has made a huge difference. I think if people really want to farm, there's a way to do it. You'll find a way if you seek it out, then the world will rise to meet you and give you what you need in order to do it. It's so cathartic to farm. It's so peaceful and crazy and wild and stressful and lovely all at the same time. Nothing gives me more pride than being able to grow something from a teeny tiny little seed, and then that actually nourishes somebody's body. Like I think that's a miracle. I think that's amazing. So if people want to farm, don't be overwhelmed. Start small and be open to all the challenges that are going to come your way. Be really open to learning, because your farm, your crops, and nature are going to be your biggest teachers if you're willing to listen.